Well, hello there, and welcome once again to Ask a Lawyer right here on CP24. Good to have you along for the half hour. John Scholes here, momentarily on your screen, employment lawyer Lior Samfiru. And we start off by telling you to reach out to Lior anytime. The only place you should go, really. Don't ask your pals. Don't Google it. Please don't do that. 1-855-821-5900 through phone. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca as well. Always have a jam-packed half hour. We always got lots of stuff to get through. We have viewer phone calls. We have emails. And a main topic, it is all about the contractors this week. We'll get to that in the second segment. But Lior, we always like to kick it off. You get us nicely warmed up with a case of the day or a week that was. What do you got happening this week, pal?
Hey, John, really good to be here to be talking about employment law yet again. And the reason we can do this every week, and we've been doing this for years, we'll continue to do this, is because there's so much to talk about. There are so many topics to cover and so much information to impart on our viewers. Everyone has a job, everyone's working, well, it's full-time, part-time, so everyone has rights. And I want everyone to know what those rights are. I don't want there to be a person walking out there wondering, should I do something? Does the law help me? What can I do in a bad situation at work? I want you to have the power of knowledge. And that knowledge is valuable if you've lost your job and you're staring at that severance letter. That knowledge is valuable if you're being mistreated by your boss, if your hours have changed, if you're asked to sign a new employment agreement. In all those situations, you should know that the law stands behind you, supports you, and gives you rights and options. You'll learn all those things on the show. But of course, beyond the show, just as important, if you want to actually have a conversation to understand specifically what to do in your situation and how the law can help you, please reach out. We'll give you that contact information throughout the show. So definitely use it. It's there for you. But let's start. Let's start with a matter that came across my desk just very recently. I spoke with a person who was working regular hours Monday to Friday on a 9-to-5 job. Well, very recently, his employer said that, well, from now on, we want you to be available to work every other weekend. So not every weekend, but every other weekend. He responded to his employer and said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I have family commitments on the weekend. I've been working 9-to-5 the whole time I've been with the company for over 4 years. I'm not going to change that. So sure enough, the first weekend when he was supposed to work came and he didn't go to work because he said, I can't. The very next day, his employer calls him into a meeting and says, you didn't show up to work. You told us you're not going to do it. We're considering you to have resigned. Off you go. Very upset, of course, because he didn't resign. He thought that he was wrong, and he was right, of course. He called me and he wanted to understand his rights. So here's the thing. His employer is the one that changed the terms of employment. His employer is the one that implemented a new rule. They didn't have a right to do that. So his refusal to come in is not a resignation. He's now been let go. We call this a termination without cause, meaning he is owed severance. So his employer is allowed to let him go for not coming in on the weekend, but that means they have to pay him severance. For him, that's more than 6 months' pay. But what I want you to take from this is this. If your employer wants you to do something that's a big deal, that's not what you've agreed to work at a different location, to come in on the weekends, to come in at night, something that's different than what you signed up for. If you don't do that, that's not a for-cause situation. That's not a resignation. If your employer wants you gone, they have to pay severance. You have a right to say no. You have a right not to agree to a change of the terms of your employment. Just like you can't tell your employer, hey, from now on, I'm not working weekdays. Your employer can't just tell you from now on you're working weekends. It goes both ways. And of course, I'm here and I've got your back. If your employer changes anything or demands something from you, just reach out to me.
Good way to get us rolling, Lior. Thank you very much for that introduction and that story as well. We're going to move on to our first phone call from one of our viewers right now. Let's have a listen.
You know, I worked at a casino. I got laid off, and I've yet to get an actual phone call from them. I was there for 17 years in a full-time position, and they've sent me some emails to come back as a contract position, working like night shifts on the weekend. We're not unionized, and I'm just wondering if I'm entitled to any severance.
You know, I'll tell you this, you know, I hope I don't sound unreasonable here, but I've had some experience with casinos as employers, and they're not very reasonable. And sometimes they don't do what they're supposed to do from a legal standpoint. Well, in this case, that's a perfect example of that. As soon as they put this person on a layoff, that becomes a termination. Remember, for most employees, a temporary layoff is a termination of employment, which entitles you to your severance. So this employer here already owes this person severance. Now they're trying to give them a part-time job working nights as a contractor. Nonsense. That doesn't change the fact that they have to pay severance. If they then want to hire him back on a different basis, they can figure that out with him. But severance has to be paid. Remember, if you're put on a temporary layoff, regardless of what reason or excuse your employer gives you, you may be able to consider that a termination with full severance. Last thing then for this question is how much severance? We're going to go to use the severance calculator so that I can show you how to calculate that severance. Let's go to EmploymentLawyer.ca. Let's plug in the information and see what we get. So a 17-year employee as a supervisor, no severance for whatever reason, except you see there right in yellow on the bottom, he's owed 18 to 24 months of severance, 18 to 24 months of pay. That's how easy it is to calculate your severance. Check it out yourself at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Just use the severance calculator.
Great stuff, Lior. We'll take a short pause here, come back with our main topic, all about the independent contractor on the other side. So stick around for that, especially if it applies to you, as we continue more Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
Lost your job? Disability denied? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/ask a lawyer and watch Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on CP24.
And welcome back to Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. Good to have you along. John Scholes, Lior Samfiru, always reachable. And the phone number first, 1-855-821-5900. Use that, keep it on your phone. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca if you want to reach out, also by email, or scan that QR code on the top right of your screen anytime. It is main topic time. We're going to keep with the independent contractor thing, Lior. And it's a really important topic, though, because a lot of people under this particular banner, or maybe they should or should not be. First question is, why is it so important to know the difference, whether it's contractor, employee, contractor? What do you think?
Well, it's important because so many people are misclassified. People are often hired as quote unquote contractors or independent contractors, but they're not really that. They're really our employees that are just called something else. It's so important to remember, most people in that situation, that's what happens to them. Just because you sign an employment agreement or any contract that says you're not an employee doesn't mean you're not an employee. The law decides that. Well, why does this happen? Well, it happens because companies don't want to have to comply with employment laws. And they think, hey, if we just call someone a contractor, we don't have to pay them overtime, we don't have to pay them vacation pay, we don't have to pay them severance. Wow, what a great thing for us, except that's not legal. You can't do that. You can't avoid complying with the laws just by calling someone a contractor. So there's a good chance that if you think you're a contractor, you're not. You're actually an employee and you have all those rights, overtime, severance, etc. So we want to pay close attention to this and remember that it doesn't matter what you call yourself, the law makes that decision.
So based on that, Lior, I'm thinking, okay, I might have to get my business cards reprinted, but how do I distinguish whether I'm an employee or a contractor, right?
So we have to keep in mind who is really a contractor. A contractor is someone that's in business for himself or herself. So if you're running a business, you have a bunch of customers or clients, you decide where to go, what work you do, and how much you're going to charge, then you're a contractor. And if you work for a company on that basis, you're not their employee and they don't have employment law obligations to you. On the other hand, if you only work for one company, they tell you what to do, where to go, how to do your work. They decide how much they're going to pay you. You are an employee. You're not a contractor. You're not running a business. And if you're not running a business and you really are an employee, you have all the rights of an employee. So ask yourself, am I running a business or do I work for someone? If you work for someone, you are an employee. If you're running a business, yeah, of course, in that situation, you are a contractor.
You know, we speak ad nauseum, have for years, Lior, about the fact that if you're an employer, you do get severance if you're let go. Is there a situation where a contractor can also get severance? How does that work? Or does it work?
So there's an in-between category. On the one hand, we have an employee. On the other end, we have an independent contractor. Well, there's a category in between called the dependent contractor. Not independent, but dependent. Well, a dependent contractor is someone that has clients and customers, but they spend most of their time with one company, one client. In that situation, if they're let go by that client, they still have to get paid their full severance as if they were an employee. So if you do, I don't know, 80 or 90% of your work with one company, you do some work on the side, but you do most of your work with that one company, you may not be an employee. You may still be owed severance because you're a dependent contractor. You're financially dependent on one company. So yes, that's yet another reason. If you're let go, even if you're not actually an employee, that's another reason why you need to call so we can make sure that you get your full severance.
We always do a brief but concise topic every week of the show like we just did, Lior. But if you need more information about independent contractor, again, there is something else you can find at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. There's a section on it, so have a look. Let's get to another viewer phone call. Lior, listen up.
I was fired for cause after an incident occurred with another coworker. This was the first and only time I've ever acted this way at the office after 8 years at the company. And this coworker has a history of making things difficult for everyone. Can they do this?
So let's be very clear. I don't know all the details, but let's assume that what this person did is wrong. Okay, they behaved in an inappropriate way. Maybe they got into an argument or an altercation. Let's assume and take it for granted that it's not appropriate. He did something wrong. But the real question is not, did he do something wrong? The question is that enough to be a termination for cause? Is that enough to make it so that he doesn't get paid his full severance? And the answer is no, it's probably not that. It is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to terminate for cause because of one incident of misconduct. It would have to be something awful like violence or fraud or sexual harassment. In those situations, yeah, of course, one incident will be enough. In pretty much every other situation, if you've done something wrong, it doesn't mean you can be let go for cause. You don't get the worst penalty. If your employer still wants you gone, they would have to pay you your full severance. This person has been there for 8 years. They could be looking at as much as a year's pay. So yeah, just because you did something wrong, maybe it wasn't your best day, you know you've messed up, you regret it, it doesn't matter. You still are going to be owed your full severance if you are let go. So don't take the fact that you did something wrong to prevent you from pursuing and understanding your full rights. Whatever the reason is why you were let go, I want you to call me.
We have plenty more show to get through, but we've got to take a short break. On the other side of the break, we'll get into our disability law segment, also what Lior's firm does as well. So stay tuned for that as we continue the show right here on CP24.
Lost your job? Disability denied? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on CP24.
And welcome back to Ask a Lawyer. This is CP24. The other half of what this very capable firm does very capably is disability law. So as far as reaching out to Lior and his team on that side, it's almost the same. The phone number is 1-855-821-5900. But to reach the disability team, it's ask@disabilityrights.ca. That is how that works. I kind of set the table up a little bit there, Lior. But tell us in brief what the disability side does. Very robust, very helpful. What do you say?
Listen, I think that on the employment side, what we do is so important. We help people in disputes with employers and enforce their employment law rights. But man, I do honestly believe that what our disability team does is even that much more important. They help people in the most difficult of situations, when they can't work, when they don't have income, when they rely on someone else's help. Our team makes sure that these individuals get that help. Too often, insurance companies that are there to pay you because they've committed to it, to pay you while you can't work, to pay you that disability coverage, they feel like they don't have to. They come up with the reasons and excuses as to why they won't pay that. And now what does the individual do? They're in a very difficult situation. They still have to pay their bills, they don't have any income coming in. Well, no, not so fast. That's where our disability team comes in. They make sure that the insurance company does what it's supposed to, so this person can live, so they don't lose their house, so they don't have to declare bankruptcy. That's why it's so important, and I want you to remember that as well. If your disability is cut off or denied, if you're not getting paid when you're supposed to, even though you can't work, I want you to call. Our team is there to help you. They help people in that situation every single day. They're very, very good at what they do, and they're successful always. So please check them out and reach out to us for that consultation.
In that regard, let's get on to our viewer phone call. When it comes to the disability side, Lior, listen to this.
My sister's long-term disability claim was recently denied. She's on debilitating medication for panic attacks and a severe anxiety disorder. We just don't understand the reason for denial, and the insurer is encouraging her to appeal. Is this her best option?
This is exactly what I'm talking about. The insurance company denies someone that can't work. Obviously, they're in a debilitating state. And not only do they deny benefits, they don't even tell them why. Just we're denying, you don't qualify, leaving these individuals confused, leaving these individuals wondering what to do. And heck, the insurance company then says, well, don't worry, you can appeal this. Guys, it's a waste of time. That appeal is not going to be successful. It's just there to tell you, to give you some hope, and then frustrate you when that hope is vanished because that appeal will get denied. So please, don't take the insurance company's process. Don't follow that process. They're leading you down a path because they want to frustrate you and they want to walk away without having to pay you these benefits. No, if she can't work, if her doctor supports her, she should be at home recovering while the insurance company is paying her until she's cleared back to return. So what does she do? She calls us. We'll deal with the insurance company. We'll force a process on them instead of them forcing it on us. And we'll make sure that she gets paid. Same with you at home. If you can't work, you're denied or cut off disability benefits, reach out right away.
Let's get to a disability law email question. How about that, Lior? For this week, it is this. What happens if insurance forces you back to work early, but your employer refuses to reinstate you to your job?
Well, the first thing to understand, John, is your insurance company can't force you back to work. Okay, they can't. It's not their job. The only one that should be deciding if you can or cannot work is, well, your doctor. If your doctor says you can't work, that's the end of the discussion. Not your insurance company's job to make that decision for you or for your doctor. So if your insurance company says you should go back to work, ask your doctor. If your doctor says, no, you can't, you're going to stay off work, and the insurance company should keep paying you. They want you off their payroll, of course. They would love for you to go back to work so they don't have to keep paying you, but it doesn't work that way. If they don't cooperate, if they say, go back to work or else we stop paying you, let us talk to them. Once they hear from us, they will do the right thing. And of course, once you are ready to come back to work, once you are cleared by your doctor, your employer should take you back. If there's no job for you, certainly you're going to be owed severance. There may even be a human rights situation in that case. So either way, you call us, whether it's to deal with your disability insurer or to deal with your employer.
We need to take one more short pause, Lior. We'll do that now, then we'll get back into the employment law side of things to wrap it up this week with another viewer phone call. That is just ahead with more Ask a Lawyer on CP24.
Lost your job? Disability denied? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on CP24.
All right, thank you so much for sticking around through that final break here as we continue on. Reach out to Lior anytime after the show and his team, reachable by phone, email, and otherwise, 1-855-821-5900. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Scan the QR code as well. And as I mentioned, Lior, we're going to wrap up the show nicely this week with another viewer phone call. So here it comes. Listen up.
I've been an executive for a company for 20 years. The company was bought out 3 years ago. The new owners, they sent a letter to all of us saying that they will not be changing anything in terms of our employment contract. Now they have just sent us a new employment contract 3 years later. They have waived the common law severance terms. I just don't know what to do. Because what are my options?
They've waived them, have they? Okay.
Well, the answer, let's start with the answer. Like, in terms of what to do, is it's very simple. You don't sign it. Absolutely not. Anytime your employer comes to you and says, I want you to sign an employment agreement, you can know without even reading it that it's bad news. It's not a good thing. It doesn't give you rights. It takes away rights. An employer is allowed to try to take your rights by way of an employment agreement. And that's what this employer is doing here. They're trying to minimize future severance. So if down the road they let her go, instead of paying her full severance, they would owe her a small fraction of what she's owed, and they would save tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So anytime you're being asked to sign an employment agreement, let me see it. Certainly you should be saying no. You can't be punished for it. Now, in this case, what's at stake for her? What's at stake is her full severance. Let's calculate her severance so she knows what she has to lose if she signs that employment agreement. We're going to go to EmploymentLawyer.ca and use the severance calculator. So we know she's 57 years of age. She's an executive, been there for 20 years or so. If she would be let go without having signed that employment agreement, you can see she's owed 18 to 24 months pay, up to 24 months pay. If she signed it, that could be as little as 8 weeks. So please don't sign it. Do the smart thing.
If she did sign it, Lior, do they have to give her something?
Well, they would have to, in order to make it legal and valid, they would have to give her something in return for signing, a signing bonus, a pay increase, something of value. But even without that or with that, please don't sign it. You don't want to get into a dispute later on. It's just better to say thanks, but no thanks.
And if they let her go at that point, then she's still covered for full severance, right? So she really can't lose.
If she signs, she's bad. It's bad news. Without it, she calls me and she's in good state.
And with that, we are out of time. Reach out to Lior anytime. In fact, do reach out to Lior no matter what. And that's 1-855-821-5900. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca. PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca is the only website. And beyond that, cp24.com/askalawyer. We'll catch you next week.